Hello, Patriots, and welcome to this election night coverage episode of Mason Cable News. Thanks for joining us. I'm Kayla Cade.
And I'm Olivia Whitehouse. Tonight, we're going to start off by introducing all of the remaining Democratic presidential candidates. We will go through an overview of who they are and their proposed policies. Polls closed just over an hour ago here in Virginia, and we will have some live results for you coming up.
But first, we will start with the former two-term Vice President, Joe Biden. Vice President Biden plans to expand the current Affordable Care Act with a public option, increase the minimum wage to $15 an hour, and build the economy through the middle class. Vice President Biden is a more moderate candidate compared to some remaining in the race.
Next up is the former mayor of New York City, Mike Bloomberg. Mayor Bloomberg has run on the strength of his wealth and electability versus Donald Trump. His argument remains that he can find common ground between Democrats and Republicans and work to fulfill the needs of all Americans. Mayor Bloomberg is nearly a centrist who has previously run as a Republican and is currently aiming to win over the middle-of-the-pack voters from Vice President Biden.
Our next candidate is the Senator from Vermont, Bernie Sanders. Senator Sanders is running on a platform of Medicare for all, a wealth tax, free public college, and canceling all student debt. He is extraordinarily popular amongst young people, at least in part due to these policies. He is seen as the most liberal candidate of the race for the Democratic presidential nomination.
The last remaining candidate that we will be covering is the Senator from Massachusetts, Elizabeth Warren. Senator Warren has been following a somewhat similar liberal path as Senator Sanders. However, of late, she has worked back toward a more moderate platform on some policies, such as free college and Medicare for all. She has been using more diluters and limiting qualifiers for these policies than the more left-leaning Senator Sanders.
Transitioning from candidates to voters, Mason Cable Network's social media manager, Angie Fortillo, went out yesterday to ask voters on campus some important questions. Take a look.
Are you voting tomorrow?
Yeah, definitely.
You are? Okay.
No, I'm not eligible.
Yes.
I am voting tomorrow.
I am voting tomorrow.
Do you know who you're voting for?
I will be voting for Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, Bernie.
Bernie, okay.
I'm undecided.
I'm voting for Bloomberg.
Probably Bernie.
And why?
I was originally an Andrew Yang supporter. I worked on his campaign. I was the student lead here on campus. And especially today with news that both Amy Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg are dropping out in order to endorse Joe Biden. I think it's important that people who want a progressive agenda on the road to the White House should be voting for Bernie Sanders. I think Elizabeth Warren lacks a path to the White House, and I think that there have been concerted efforts in order to stop Bernie Sanders, and I think that's wrong. And I think he lines up with most of my ideas on how the country should be run, so I'll be very enthusiastically voting for him.
What issue is the most important for you?
I'm an environmental science student, so climate change, always just climate change, just environmental issues in general.
The U.S. economy, certainly sustainability and climate is very important.
Yes, of course.
Certainly, healthcare is important.
Probably gun control.
Gun control.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably climate change, but economic inequality is also a big one. That's what originally drew me to Andrew Yang and some of his economic proposals, but I trust Bernie Sanders more than any of the candidates remaining in the race to help tackle that.
The student debt?
Yeah.
Yeah. Being as an out-of-state student is just too much.
The most important, honestly, is to beat Trump. I think that's the most important thing for all Democrats and everybody voting. But I think Bloomberg is the best choice for me because he's able to bring in a lot of moderates and even Republicans who don't want to vote for Trump. So he's definitely more inclusive than I feel like the other candidates who have a strong base and grassroots movement, but when it comes to bringing in those voters that go out and vote, like moderates and Republicans leaning away from Trump, he's the guy to do it.
That was insightful information as to what Mason students were thinking heading into the polls today. I'm hearing we have a live update on our Virginia race. Let's check it out. In the state of Virginia, it appears that Joe Biden is ahead of Bernie Sanders by 54.7%. Elizabeth Warren is in third, getting 10% as well. This is important because in order to win any delegates in any of the contests today, candidates must reach the 15% viability threshold.
Getting back to what was said in the package with Angie, I thought it was very interesting that a handful of people on campus who were interviewed said that climate change or environmental issues were the most important. We have seen a movement throughout this democratic primary process to focus on climate change and how this country and its citizens affects it, led by some of the more progressive candidates.
You have to wonder if that bodes well for Senator Warren or Senator Sanders, who have been more progressive on climate change throughout the primary process. We will have to wait and see if there is a high turnout on college campuses here in Virginia, such as George Mason or any other major public colleges like UVA, JMU, and so on.
We are getting word that we have more live results from states that have finished voting within the last hour or so. Looking first at Virginia, we see Joe Biden with 54.7%. Next, we have Bernie Sanders with 23%. And last, we have Elizabeth Warren with 10.2%. With Vermont, we have Bernie Sanders with 50.4%. We have Joe Biden with 22.7%. And lastly, we have Elizabeth Warren with 11.3%. With North Carolina, we have Joe Biden with 35.0%, Bernie Sanders with 23.6%, and Michael Bloomberg with 16.8%.
Let's take a look at the bigger picture here and compare across the states that currently have precincts reporting.
Move to the rollout.
That's all from us here at Mason Cable Network. I'm Olivia Whitehouse.
And I'm Kayla Cade saying thank you for joining us for this special election night presentation of Mason Cable News.